Hello and welcome. My name is Keegan, and this is the first episode in a new series that I'm doing called How to Improve at Valorant. So, today we're going to go ahead and start with consistency and fundamentals. I'm going to cover what you guys should be doing for consistency and how you should be practicing fundamentals. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so the first thing that we want to be doing is a consistent aim training practice before you guys get on. This is going to be your warm up. So, I personally use kxagan. Aim is perfectly fine. Currently, I'm doing a large angle scenario, so as you guys know, maybe in AimLab, different tasks practice different things. Same thing goes for Kovac, obviously. So I think a really good way to kind of like know what you can be doing for warm up or aim training is to look at kind of where you're down in that skill ranking in AimLab. I'm guessing that a lot of you guys are going to be on AimLab, so that's what I would recommend for that situation. If you're on Kovac, it gets a little bit more complicated. You can use Voltic benchmarks if you don't already know what you should be aim training. But with that, as long as you guys are doing a very consistent routine before you even just get into Valorant and hop into the range, you're going to see a big improvement. And that's just because you're practicing like hardline, basic mouse movement. Uh, like Valorant deathmatches, Valorant in range, they don't give you a wide variety of mouse movement and practice. So that's kind of the point of using that aim trainer. And with, in order to improve, you just have to be doing it consistently. So that's the key there. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and cover fundamentals. One of the things that we're going to start with is peeking, how to jiggle, and how to kind of like make sure that if you come across an enemy, you're not going to be in a weak position because they're holding you. So as you guys can see in this clip, I'm very carefully making sure I'm not subjecting myself to more than one angle at a time. You want to make sure that you're covering each site with like your crosshair. That way, if you take a gunfight, you're already ready to fight that, and you don't have to make crazy adjustments, which take more time and will probably end up just getting you killed. Another good way to practice this is in the diffuse. You can practice holding there as well. So you can see that as I'm entering, I'm still doing the same thing that we just covered in the diffuse cycle. However, when you're planting, you do have to hold. So you can practice a couple different kind of holding ways, like to make sure that you are not subject to both angles at the same time. You'll go ahead and see a good example of this where I'm really isolating the angles that the bots are going to be pushing. There's a lot of thought. The more thought you guys put into this kind of training, the more it's going to transfer over when you play. You can practice it in deathmatch, which we're going to get into in game. We're going to get into that too. But for now, focus purely on where I'm positioning myself in relation to the bomb, in relation to where I know they're going to be, where you can imagine your teammates playing. I didn't do that so much in this practice, but you can definitely do that as well. That's a bit more applicable for when you're actually running scenarios in game. And a big part of that is not just practicing, but also communicating with your teammates. Hey, we need to set up post plant positions here. That way, we're going to be strong in these positions. So crosshair placement's really big. Making sure that here I'm hiding behind the box, protecting myself from the CT angle while I'm isolating Speedway. So then here I've now isolated. Hey, we got that one bot on CT. How can I play a safe angle that, like, if there was an enemy and this was a game which was on the line, what would be my best position? And that's where I decided. Alright, so real quick, before we jump into death matches, I'm going to go quickly over spray resetting. Less so spray resetting, but more so how to actually tap and control your burst fire with the Vandal. So in death matches, you'll see me go like this, take a couple shots, and reset a lot. You'll also see me like spray, hard commit to sprays sometimes. So I'm gonna go ahead and like kind of explain the difference once we start getting into those actual gunfights that are relevant in that moment. Um, so that's kind of what we're gonna be covering. Another thing is how to kind of peek properly and the difference between when you should be Wing and when you should be peeking very linear. What I mean by peeking very linear is if we use this bot here, kind of by this spray set, you can see that I'm using a very like left-right horizontal angle. So if we were to draw lines, they would be very straight, right? So I'm swinging out wide, very perpendicular to the position. So if we were to draw a line, I'm swinging out kind of like this. Now if we were to WS, you see that this is less of a 90 degree. If I'm like, I guess WD, so kind of swinging out like horizontally, you see that this is more of a 45 degree angle. Like this is where geometry comes into video games. This is more 90. So just like quick. That's 90 degree, and then the 45, you see the difference there, and like you guys can like kind of like see probably in gameplay. One, that's harder to hit. Secondly, it's a lot slower of a peak. So this is much quicker opposed to W and D or W and A. Same thing goes for like S, but you're not really peeking backwards most of the time. So let's go ahead and jump into death matches so you guys can see how those mechanics transfer over into real gunfights. Alright, so here we are in death matches. Taking a look at the second fight with the Rays, you can see me do that spray reset that we talked about earlier with that Phoenix. I was unfortunately W King at the time, so the kind of way that we make that adjustment instead of we can't really make this AD fight. So if we are Wing, you're gonna go ahead and take a pause. You're gonna hold that angle instead of being the aggressor in the situation, because as we saw in the training in the range in the training grounds, that WD versus A to D movement is much slower. Now going ahead and back to this Viper, we're taking that moment to spray reset. Here you can look, we just hit a nice flick on that brim. Once again holding on that Phoenix because we just swirled around in a quick 180, and at the moment we did press S. So here we are swinging with AD. So here we take jiggles, AD, very very linear to that brim. His position was at a bit of an angle, but nonetheless that AD movement is much faster. It's just much harder to hit. Also, you guys can kind of judge already where I'm spraying and where I'm resetting. So in that Omen, even if I missed those shots, I would have committed to a spray fight because it's more accurate. At that range, it's much more acceptable, and you're much more likely to win the gunfight if you hold a spray rather than try to do a reset there. Honestly, if I had missed the shot and tried to do a spray reset, Omen would have kept spraying and I likely would have been dead. You can kind of see me kind of moving around with that W. That's when it's okay. You don't have to jiggle everything. It's pretty slow to jiggle. That's the downside of your jiggle AD movement. Unfortunately, you cannot go around the map just ADing everything. I wish you could, but that's just not how the game works. So taking a moment to come back, you can kind of see that I swing out wider there against the Killjoy. And that's because it's just unreadable. It's an unpredictable peak. So when you kind of get a little bit more into peaking theory and gunfights, there is a certain pattern that people do where they'll just spam AD and go back and forth, and you can throw people off by either going A again or going D again, just going wider out from cover because it's less readable. So people will pre-aim your counter-strike movement in attempts to win a gunfight, and that's one way to kind of throw your enemies for a loop if you're at that point. So next I'm going to go ahead and run some real situations where I think we can really get in depth about the peaking in game. The death matches are pretty quick paced. I just wanted to show you guys some examples so you could see how that really looks when we're coming down to just raw gun skill and peaking skill and peaking advantage, I guess you could say. So let's go ahead and jump into that. Alright, so in this next clip we have some good things, we got some bad things, we're going to talk about it. Just walk you guys through the thinking, how to think about this, how to understand your peaks, how to know what was a good play, what was not a good play. Just kind of as a frame of reference for what we're really looking for and what we're kind of not looking for so much. So here I'm in a 1v5, teammates AFK. This was just an unrated in the fracture playlist, but it's still mechanics. So let's go ahead and jump in. So I kind of whiff on this over there. I was able to kind of get out and I got some info. So here KJ comes out, which is fine by me because I'm totally okay taking my time to clear that. Ray's got greedy pushed up. Sage kind of stayed in that spot where we actually saw her when we initiated that fight between her and the Sova. So that was totally, that was fine. I was able to get the info from that original fight, which that's why it's okay to back out and not hard commit because you always have an opportunity to kind of reset and hit again like this. With that raise, I do want to talk about that real quick because when you kind of jiggle or peek something in that way, you don't want to assume that somebody's not there. I had no idea where Raze was. I didn't think she was going to be, I didn't think she was going to really be playing there, but I was expecting it at the same time. You want to be expecting, that way you're prepared if someone is there rather than just crutching hard off info. Because if you don't anticipate their position and just act like they're going to be exactly where you're peeking every time, they're going to catch you by surprise, which is going to kind of delay your gunfight by even just half a second, and you're just going to lose just because expecting you and you're not expecting them. Silver dart comes out. We smoke just in case we're getting peeked, or in case I miss the dart, and then I also back up. We kill the drone, we kill the turret, and then we reload. This is kind of annoying because I got the shock darts coming in with the jet, so here I actually swing out a bit wider out of range, which is totally fine because I have my dash as jet. Normally, this would be a bit questionable, but you're kind of forced out just because of the shock dart. So we don't get the kill on the jet, and after I kind of lost my spray, I would have had to take another spray reset there, and that is too long of a gunfight. As you can see, the solo went ahead and popped in. That's why I chose to dash instead of trying to strafe out and continue that fight. Or spray. I stopped spraying because that's also, that's too long of a range for consistent spray, and anything past the 4 or 5 shots is just too much. So Sova didn't reposition. You should 100% reposition. If an enemy spots you, you need 100% reposition so they can't just get free picks like that. And here I just push up because I'm trying to finish these kills. I didn't know KJ was there, but like I said, we're anticipating. I thought the Jet might be playing that. So there's that. I think this is a mistake on my part. At this moment, I need to take a breath here. But I actually forced this, and I'm trying to continue momentum because I think that Jet is just going to be trying to play time and kind of back out and play ring around the rows around the boxes. I guessed wrong. So she tries to fight me here, misses her shot. I just swing out further to the left away from cover and get the right click, and then we end up clutching the round. So that's kind of, that touches over what we kind of grazed off of in Deathmatch. I just kind of want to show you guys how in-depth it really gets in-game. And with that, just going over things that we already went over, you want to be doing consistent aim training every day. You want to be consistently practicing your fundamentals. Do that in the range and in deathmatch. Personally, my deathmatch routine goes like this. I usually start off with a ghost or a sheriff. I do a full game on that, and then I'll do Phantom and Vandal games until I win both Phantom and Vandal, and then one good op game. And good is either a win, second, third place, so and so. And another really good thing to do is get pistol practice in the warm-ups of those death matches. That way you're also getting practice on your sidearms, because I think a lot of people kind of neglect that, and it really shows in their pistol rounds. And with that, that wraps up episode 1.